Welcome to our NovaNetix introductory video. Over the coming minutes, you will learn the simple truth behind this amazing personal improvement discovery. NovaNetix works because it gets right to the heart of the problem. You can feel better with results you can track in real time. In fact, you may choose to try a sample of this unique method during this recording. Right before your eyes, you may see and hold real proof that you too can use NovaNetix. Now, your time is important. So let's dive right in.
So, what exactly is NovaNetix?
The name NovaNetix means new approach, or a whole new way to undergo effective self-improvement. It's a brand new twist on self-care, featuring the applied science of using symbols and rational thinking to simply shift how we automatically respond to life's various challenges.
But what can using NovaNetix actually do for you?
NovaNetix helps clear away toxic emotional overload. The critical thinking person struggles in life for various reasons, one of which is an internal resistance to useful change brought about by a lifetime of accumulated stresses, disappointments, frustrations, and more. Internalized resistance to useful change may be the #1 reason why practical self-improvement methods tend to wear off. The change-resistant mind cannot embrace, tolerate, or fully adopt certain kinds of change. NovaNetix helps erase emotional toxicity so that reasonable change has a chance to take root and grow. It's like a reset switch on your troubles. Once freed from the toxic overload, the healthy mind becomes better able to make and keep productive change and improvements. The sensation has been likened to a windswept mind, ready to now finally embrace and fully use sensible, practical self-care strategies for change. A mind that is rationally liberated from needless upset or worry. This is what basic NovaNetix aims to achieve. It's like a wonderful and much-needed emotional spring cleaning for the overloaded mind.
Okay, but these days everyone in self-help makes ridiculous claims that theirs is the secret method that works. I'm tired of being disappointed. How do I know NovaNetix can actually work for me?
Great question. Well,
real self-help is certainly not yet an exact science, and
a healthy skepticism is a smart outlook in life. What makes NovaNetix stand out for me is how you can track and monitor its effectiveness, all in real time. NovaNetix proves itself with each successful use, and the results may last longer than you'd expect. For instance, Douglas performed the very first official NovaNetix exercise back in 2006, and those positive results still remain fully in effect today, all from just one use. Now, no one can guarantee identical results for every person, but the opportunity to track and monitor one's results helps to eliminate guesswork throughout the process. You can know and trust your own observations and results right before your very eyes.
So, is NovaNetix some new kind of therapy or strange hypnosis? What would you call it?
It's important to draw a clear distinction. NovaNetix is self-help, not therapy or counseling. You learn it to help yourself. NovaNetix self-care practitioners tend to report greater resilience to stress, workplace issues, pressures of daily living, and greater relationships due to reduced emotional burdens. NovaNetix helps one to scoop out the bad stuff, pour in the good stuff, and switch off stressful triggers so one can feel happy again. The big idea in NovaNetix is that emotional triggers and memories have a degree of intensity about them, and by lowering that emotional intensity, the mind experiences far less burden when triggered. That relief comes from lowered emotional toxicity, which may then carry forward into a more productive life. Stress sticks less and less when you change how the mind handles it. Emotional care and resilience are essential self-help strategies for balanced living. Now, let's hear from the founder of NovaNetix, Douglas Myrick, from a taped presentation given before a small group in the beautiful Ozark Hills.
Hello friends, thank you for inviting me to this small get-together. My name is Douglas Myrick, and I am the creator of NovaNetix. Thank you for your time and for this opportunity to just get a few thoughts down. And I understand we're making an audio recording of this as well. Great. Thank you. Well, okay, then if this is going to sound all right, we'll get started. A couple of key concepts that I want to start with on this is that an exciting discovery was made in the year 2006, and that's that emotional responses may be edited or even eliminated at will. This is huge in the field of personal improvement. Now, by editing or redefining hurtful or self-limiting emotional responses to certain triggers, we may get the most out of self-help, motivation, coaching, or other life-affirming experiences. In other words, this is the missing link to real self-help. By redefinition, I'm talking about that which allows the improvement-minded individual to focus on solutions rather than dwell with the emotional burden and bother of their problems. By focusing on solutions instead of problems, now we're able to invest all that formerly wasted energy on creating progress in our life, rather than managing the personal hell and struggle that we needlessly carry day after day after day. By redefinition, I mean that an individual has now got the power to help themselves to build resilience in place of where they may feel frustration or the inability to create desired change. When life steps up and blindsides us, hits us with setbacks or unexpected challenges, we will have built emotional resilience in place, the better to withstand the impact and to bounce back. With redefinition, we allow an individual the opportunity to redirect their emotional energies back into motivation, certainty, assertiveness training, and generally just a power for more successful living. What else can it do? Redefinition can bring a state of calm, and it can reestablish order, if you will, out of the chaos in a person's life, in their various relationships, or all the avenues of the tree of life, if you will, be it physical, emotional, the cognitive, mental state, spiritual, financial, what have you. For every branch of life, this can create calm and certainty by removing the wasted energies, redirecting them back into more positive results. Make sense? Now here's something else that it can do, and I think that this is important. The more we dig into it and study it, it breaks the downward cycle of self-sabotage and the limiting beliefs that accompany that. And it does this by silencing the inner critic. Right? Show of hands, yes? Right? Now, everyone has, to some degree, an internal critic. All you have to do is think about some sort of goal, some sort of, dream you'd like to pursue. And this tiny little voice pops up from nowhere and says, you probably won't do that. They probably won't care. No one's going to invest themselves in that. No one is interested in what you have to do. You'll probably blow the money somewhere. You won't go on that vacation. You'll just probably gain all the weight back. Nag, nag, nag. You know how it is. We all have this internal critic. And as we begin to break the downward cycle of self-sabotage and these self-limiting beliefs, by using this NovaNetix tool that allows you to silence the inner critic. Does it really silence it? No, but it allows you to build resilience so that it doesn't impact you the same way. It may always be there. It may always be there. But it just can't get a rise out of you anymore. And that's really all you're looking for. Some peace of mind, right? Yes. NovaNetix, what a strange, wonderful word. What does it mean? Nova, N-O-V-A, it means new. Netix, N-E-T-I-X. That is, with a great deal of poetic or artistic license, intended to mean way of doing things, way of approaching things. So together, it is intended to mean a new way of approaching things or of doing things. I got the name as a neologism from two books I read when I was in high school, probably my senior year. Psycho-Cybernetics by Dr. Maxwell Maltz, and Hypno-Cybernetics by Sidney Petrie and Robert B. Stone. I always thought that netics was just an interesting way of putting it, just kind of a neat technical term, if you will. Netics, I like that. And when I chose the name NovaNetix, I went with a capital N, O-V-A, and then another capital N, E-T-I-X, because I wanted to make sure that it was different, that it didn't look like cybernetics or hypno-cybernetics or anything. I wanted to distinguish this as its own standalone name. That's where that came from. Okay, but what in the world does it do for you? Well, it's not just about feeling better, but it does that. NovaNetix empowers the user to finally make significant, long-lasting progress in their personal and professional life. As I teach it with you, and as I have taught it before over the many years, I tell them that it works very well, whether in the boardroom or the bedroom. It's something that impacts every avenue of life. And it's because what we're dealing with is the emotion bank of the mind. Within the human mind, there is a place where all of our emotions and the memories associated with those feelings all just kind of go and hang out. It's like a library, if you will. In that library, over a period of time, can develop an invisible enemy that resists your best effort to change and improve certain areas of your life. No, not every area, but just certain ones. And it's different for every person. The invisible enemy within is called the toxic mind. And that must be eliminated before self-help can finally work and stick. Boy, that's been missing in self-help for so long. An understanding at a fundamental level right here. Why is it that you can't get certain self-improvement methods to work? Well, sometimes they're just not well written. Sometimes they're just based on nonsense. But oftentimes, it's a quality, well-written, well-designed program taken by somebody who has a little bit of change resistance. That's the byproduct of the toxic mind resisting certain types of change, only certain ones. And if it says, no, I'm not going to allow this, well, eventually it's going to win because it's part of your subconscious mind. That part that never sleeps, that's always there. Even while you sleep, it will work on your dreams. It will work on your attitude. It will work on your commitment, eating away to get you to stop any sort of activity or behavior that for whatever reason it thinks is dangerous for you. That's right. The toxic mind is so called because in its toxicity, it stops you from making beneficial changes because it erroneously thinks some element of that intended change, thinking behavior, or acting behavior is going to lead you to a harmful or dangerous circumstance. How messed up is that? Now, the toxic mind is a result of a lifetime of accumulated negative experiences, ultimately causing the mind to resist certain changes. The survival reflex will assume that certain changes that you intend to make will lead to harm, disappointment, loss, sadness, even death or injury. And it makes these mistakes automatically. In so doing, your mind's survival mechanism will lock down your ability to create and sustain desired changes. For example, how many people know of someone who has quit smoking before, but then they went right back to it? Maybe a year later, maybe 5 years later, but sure enough, they went right back to it. I know of people who paid good money, hundreds of dollars, to go to a clinical hypnotist. And they stopped smoking for about a week. So what's the problem? Well, nicotine is a powerful addictive drug. But there are other factors too. Lifestyle, thoughts, behaviors, maintenance, exercises after the hypnotic work. All of these things are factors, but there's a deeper factor, the change-resistant mind. At some level, that individual or those individuals, I'm sure of it, they had a situation of a toxicity of the mind that believed if I stop smoking, that's going to lead to some sort of problem, maybe weight gain, maybe irritability, maybe cravings. And I don't like that. Those scare me. I'm here to keep you safe and away from harm at all costs. So the mind says, we're going to go back to smoking. We're going to go with this guy. And it's not just the smoking. I mean, there are, people who have tried to stop drinking. People who've struggled with making quality improvements in their career. People who have struggled to assert themselves or to use effective problem solving, whether personally or for business or for a career. People who lack resiliency. They can't seem to bounce back whenever life comes along with even the simplest of unexpected bothers. A flat tire. Oh man, somebody calls in sick. Oh man. And for some people, that would be a mild irritation, something that they have to deal with. For other people, it can seem just darn near catastrophic. Resiliency is affected. And yes, they struggle to assert themselves. Sometimes fears and phobias can step forward and be a real problem. For example, let's say that in your chosen work, there is a tremendous opportunity for you to make $15,000 more every year. And in the role, once a week, we need you to stand up in front of everybody and give a quality report. Well, for some people, that's no trouble at all. But for a lot of people, public speaking is absolutely just the worst. They don't want it. And what do you think the chances are that your powerful toxic mind is going to say, I have to go and do something I absolutely hate 52 times this year? Well, 50 if we get a vacation. No, actually, I'm going to put a clamp on that change. We're going to do something to blow this so that it doesn't work. Change resistance is the result, you see. And so your intention, maybe you wanted that money, maybe you wanted that responsibility, you wanted that job, you really wanted to reach for it. Somehow, some way, you're going to goof it up because the toxic mind always gets its way. That's why it's so dangerous to just leave it in place. That's why you can try your very best. You can spend thousands of dollars on a great, wonderful, popular self-improvement multi-day seminar. You can go and chant and pump and your fist in the air and dance around to the music and chant and yell and walk on funny things barefoot, punch through karate boards and yell. And man, it feels great when you're doing it. But the toxic mind is going to say, what in the hell are you doing? You just made me walk across that? Are you stupid? When we get back home, buddy, we're going to stop this change. We're not walking on that anymore. You punched a piece of wood. Are you nuts? And until you eliminate the toxic mind, all those benefits, well, they just wear off about the time the credit card bill arrives. I mean, here's the fact about self-help. If I can be candid, most of us have tried it. Most of us have struggled with this invisible enemy within. The toxic mind, it wants to keep you from changing certain thoughts and behaviors in life because it has mistakenly associated some element along the way of your transformation as being a trigger for danger, harm, pain, injury, loss. And it always wins. I go through this and I reiterate this, friends, because this is so important. I don't think anyone's really gone to this extent to talk about this before. The enemy within is not attitude. It's the toxic mind. Okay? It has the power to shape your attitude. Oh, yeah. But when you really get to the root of it, the true root, the root, the basic of it, what you're dealing with is toxicity within the mind's reflexive response to what it perceives to be a danger, threat, or harm. Okay, that's right. So what can we do when our survival reflex goes haywire and blocks our ability to use self-help, to change, to grow, to improve ourselves? What can we do about this toxic mind? Well, eliminating the toxic mind begins with an understanding of where it is in the body and how to soothe away the toxic mind's potent, negative reflex sensitivity and action. I've often talked about this. I will again. There exists a kind of library in the brain where emotional memories are stored and labeled for fast retrieval. And this has to deal with how the mind's survival reflex works using symbols rather than full-length text. These are association symbols that instantly, by looking at it, conveys a certain meaning. If I drew up here a smiley face, that would convey for each of you a variation on a certain meaning. Happy, smiling, enjoyable. If I drew a frowning face, you would get the opposite result, but it would instantly convey a meaning. Now, if I drew some random squiggle you'd never seen before, a part of the mind would say, "What the hell is this?" Because it doesn't have any context. There's no association behind its interpretation of that symbol. Your survival reflex, also called the survival instinct, another name for it, deals with speed and efficiency because what is its job? It's to keep you alive and safe so that you can live long enough to reproduce and maybe help raise the children so that they can live long enough to reproduce and raise the children and keep this thing on planet Earth working, to keep human life going, to keep butts on this giant rock hurtling through space at 18 miles a second. Sometimes we lose track of that. And so your survival mechanism over many moons of growth and evolution has become inherently adapted to be fast. It has to be. Why? Well, because there probably were people in the ancient ancestry of human growth and evolution who were out hunting one day and they paused as a group when somebody heard the sound of heavy crackling as if something was walking and pushing and cutting through the underbrush. Oh, now some of them started to beat their feet and go over the hill. Some of them weren't that clever. They stopped and they looked and they listened very carefully. They froze in their tracks. And their mind, in a primitive way, started to say, now let's see, what could that be that's making that rustling, crackling, snarling, growling noise? Gosh, it's on the tip of my tongue. I could have swore I've heard that before. Could it be a bird? Well, I wonder, and by the time they get around to figuring out it's probably a tiger, well, they've been eaten. And that's right, extracted from the gene pool. Those traits won't be passed on down to the next generation. And so you see, it was hoped that maybe eventually the survival instinct of the human species would be pretty quick, pretty sharp, wouldn't waste a lot of time deliberating true or false. It just simply responds. And in that case, the smartest response is get the hell over that hill. There's something in the underbrush. What else could there be? Well, think about a time when you went to the fridge, opened it up, and You caught a whiff of some awful smell. Well, chances are, if you're a reasonably intelligent person, you didn't go rummaging through there, find the offending food, whip out a spoon, and get a couple bites just to see, is this the same stuff that made me sick once before when I was a kid? Hell no, you threw it away. You didn't even have to stop and think about it. It was automatic. And that's what I mean by this reflex, an automaticity of the mind to simply take over and say, okay, I got it from here. I know what's going on. Damn, stop what you're doing. Whatever this change is that you're trying to do, just quit, okay? Okay, quit. And that's how it happens. The toxic mind prevails once again. Now, this emotional library in the mind that contains all of these emotional memories, it's comprised in part of a structure within the brain called the amygdala. We talked about this before. The amygdala has to do with emotional memories and the fear response. And that's where our target is. NovaNetix uses the simple science of cranial nerve number 1 and how it affects the amygdala in order to allow you to make very rapid edits and redefinitions selectively in certain memory records within the amygdaloidal process. And when you do this, it begins to reduce away the response side of the toxic mind's stimulus response chain. When this happens, you will stop adversely reacting every time a certain song comes on the radio that reminds you of, that relationship that ended poorly. It will allow you to stop feeling nervous whenever your boss walks by, so now you can start to speak clearly and sound like the reasonably intelligent, talented, and capable person that you are, instead of fumbling for your words or struggling to assert yourself in an appropriate way. And on and on and on, the various avenues of life that this sort of relief from these thinking errors can start to bring. Now, what can we expect? Because I've got to hurry here. We're on a time crunch to get to the next break. Well, as we reduce away the needless heavy burden of the toxic mind, this invisible enemy within, it becomes apparent that certain upsetting memories no longer feel as bad. In fact, NovaNetix has the power to reduce away emotional toxicity both in past incidents and in the current incidents. The issues that you're contending with and dealing with now and even on a daily basis. From the jerk that cut you off in traffic to that person who's playing office politics and trying their damnedest to cut you out from a promotion. And anything in between up and down the line. It works on past incidents, and it sure works on the emotional toxicity of what you're going through today. Whether you know your trigger or you don't know your trigger, there is a NovaNetix assistance that can help you help yourself. We're talking about anything from workplace stress, strained relationships, dealing with social media, especially during a hostile political year or environment, financial woes, worries, and struggles. Oh man, I tell you what, I used to sit up late at night just in tears. Where am I going to find the money? And I want to tell you folks, listen, all that worry, fret, and fear never put $1 on our table. But when I got rid of all that toxic, horrible, negative, disgusting, poisonous emotion, and then applied all the energy I used dealing with that crap to now solve my problems, solutions presented themselves. And I then had the emotional and the mental and the physical resources to pursue those. What else? You're dealing with unexpected loss, blindsides, blunders. Listen, life is hectic sometimes. Stress, strain, it takes its toll on anything, especially the human mind. What this stuff does is it gives you the power to take back all the energy that you waste feeling like hell about something. So now you can start to turn it around. And this is only the beginning. This is only the beginning. Let's take a break now, and when we come back, we'll break down the basic NovaNetix reduction exercises and give a generic example of their use so that you can begin to use that as a template in your own life. Hey, thanks so much. I'll see you when we get back. I'll see you soon. Okay, everyone, welcome back. Hi. As we get started here on the second section, I'm going to, in a nutshell, break down the basic NovaNetix reduction techniques. In the NovaNetix system, there are many levels or layers of complexity, and that's just because it has evolved so much since 2006. I have numerous banker boxes stuffed with notes and techniques and experiments and ideas that comprise over 1,000 variations on the possibilities that NovaNetix and this weird mind thing that I stumbled upon in anatomy class, it can really bring to bear. Now, in future courses, I will go more deeply into why it works and some of the more advanced discoveries that we've made, shortcuts that really help a person to go deeply and save time while they're helping themselves with this. But for now, just like a martial arts system, you have to start at the beginning. So, you're a white belt. Congratulations. Okay. I'm going to flip my notes over here and we can get going. The basic reduction techniques, BRT, have to do with a class of NovaNetix techniques that deal primarily with reducing down negative emotions. By reducing down negative emotions, you can begin to diminish adverse reactions that are associated with those emotions. The way we accomplish this is by using a series of steps. 3. We rate, we reduce, we replace. Rate, reduce, replace. I did not purposefully choose that to all 3 start with the letter R. That was an accident, I think. But that's it. The 3 R's. I know, right? How cheesy. But that's it. And it's easy to remember that way. You rate it, you reduce it, and you replace it. What do I mean? Well, before we do any of those 3 steps, we have to know either what our problem is, or we need to know the negative emotions that we're feeling, despite the fact we can't quite put our finger on what the problem is. Now let me say that again. With NovaNetix, even the white belt level, if you want to call it that, it's possible to reduce away on the knowns. Those things that you know bother you. That person at work, they drive you crazy. Well, what do you feel? I feel frustration and irritability. And okay. But you know what it is that's causing those feelings. Yes, then that is a known. But what if you felt those frustrations, but you didn't know exactly what the trigger was? Maybe you had some inkling. There's something at work, I don't know what it is, but lately, it just gets me so tense, and I feel so insecure at the same time, and I don't understand why. What has changed? Okay, admittedly, you know that it seems to be proximal to your workplace. Something there is triggering you, but you don't know what the trigger is. That, in NovaNetix, is classified as an unknown. Now, I'm going to go ahead and let the cat out of the bag. There are far more unknowns that people deal with than there are knowns. Now, that can be daunting when you think about how big this great big world is. There's a lot of unknowns that tug at us, that tug at our feelings, our emotions, our relationships, our feelings of self-worth, and on and on and on. and we can't quite put our finger on what it is from day to day, moment to moment. But you know when you're triggered because you feel that shift. And in the basic reduction techniques, you can begin to rate, reduce, and replace those bad feelings associated either with a known trigger or an unknown. And so let's get to the first R, rate. Rate the negative emotional potency using a 0 to 11 emotional potency scale, where 0 represents perfect peace and calm. Everything is easy and gentle. It's perfectly peaceful. All the way up the other extreme. Absolutely awful. The most intense pain, irritation, frustration, just the worst emotional feelings ever. And somewhere in the middle, all the way 0 to 11. Using this scale, think about your subject. Now, your subject is your known trigger, or the way you feel when your unknown trigger fires off. That's the stress, the anger, the frustration, the irritation, what have you. When you understand what your subject is, or evidence that there is a subject, you can then go from 0 to 11 and say, okay, how strongly do I feel this? How potent is this negative sensation or emotion? And you write that down. It's important. That's why it's a first step. We've got to write it down. What is written can be used over time for you to go back and track your progress. If you write out a 9, 10, or extreme 11, and you use a basic reduction technique 3 or 4 times, and lo and behold, the strongest that you can manage to put down after all that time is, well, it's reduced all the way down to a 0, maybe a 1. Well, there you go. And that's what your new number would be. And what's interesting is over time you go back and, it never did go back to an extreme 11. Or 10, or 9, or wherever we started. That's interesting. But more so than that is the reason why I say that NovaNetix proves itself with each successful use, and it continues to prove its value to you over time. And it's the emotional potency scale and your records of it that allow you to track and monitor your progress. If it starts to climb up in certain areas of life, there are some unknowns that you'd better chase down and use the techniques to run that out. So there we are. Step number 1, rate. We've got to get a baseline reading, a rating, where we are before we run the tech. Number 2, reduce. We're going to run a basic reduction technique on the subject in order to reduce away its emotional potency. These techniques are designed to serve people who can visualize or use mental imagery to create tiny little mental movies, or we have alternative techniques where people can use some sort of subjective symbol, something tangible like paper or things like that. And that's the particulars of which are all in the techniques. The basic idea of the BRT is that emotions are intangible. I can't hand you a pound of sadness. You can't hand me a pound of regret or grief or guilt or anger, frustration, tenseness. These are feelings, and they have no weight, they have no mass, but they have all the power in the world to adversely affect our lives. So we have to do something with them, but the mind, it deals in thinking symbols, meaning symbols, what I call association symbols. Remember we talked about, think about a smiley face, and that has some sort of pre-existing association with you. Well, the emotion bank of the mind, where we have to access and process these issues using the basic reduction techniques, it doesn't deal in the written word. It deals in thinking or association symbols. So you have to kind of translate your intention into its language so that it can understand that the change you're intending to make is safe. That way it will accept it. If you don't speak its language, it's going to default that this is probably not safe. Better extinguish any change this person makes as soon as I'm capable of. For example, a person who stops smoking using a traditional clinical hypnotherapy approach, and sure enough, a year later, the therapy starts to extinguish, and they throw up their hands and say, I can't believe it. What happened? Well, what happened was it didn't go deeply enough, didn't implant in the right place, and the emotion bank of the mind felt threatened, and it auto-extinguished. It just pushed it out as quickly as it could. So, step 1, rate. Step 2, reduce. And now we know why we reduce, because if we don't get those numbers out, all of our hard-earned gains are going to extinguish. So we've got to get that number down. Aim for a 0. If it took you 6 months to go from extreme 11 all the way down to 0, good. Get it done as soon as possible. Some people do it in 1 day. Some people do it in 1 technique. I know I've done that before on things, and it is amazing. But you got to write it down. You will never believe it. You'll think it's placebo effect. You come back a week later and it's still low. Wow. Yeah, that's when it gets to feeling good, y'all. The third R is replace. This is essential. We talk about the mind wanting to extinguish positive changes because it feels violated. Well, here is something to remember. I call it the law of the divot, D-I-V-O-T. Any golfers? Right? In golf, sometimes, not always, sometimes with some bad form or a little exuberance, your golf club can knock up a big chunk of earth and it goes flying. And it's always good policy to immediately go and retrieve what's called the divot and repair it. I'm not sure, is the flying sod the divot or is it the hole? It's probably the hole. But regardless, you put it back in there because you don't want to leave an open hole there, otherwise it's just going to accumulate mud or whatever else, rain. And so in NovaNetix Basic, if you begin to reduce away these volumes of negative emotion and liberate that energy, well, that's left a hole. You've got to fill something back in there, something positive, something useful, something reasonable. Because if you don't, the subconscious mind can't tolerate that hole. It's going to go and find the most convenient thing that it can. Now, if you want to stop smoking, and you go to a traditional therapist, and they use whatever modality, hypnosis, whatnot, and they get in there and they carve that compulsion out, but they don't go back and backfill that with something else, then that's the reason why later on you overeat, or you start drinking, or you start having other reckless behavior, because the subconscious says, well, those things are fun. Let's fill that hole with this. So, the third step is replace, and it's vital. You've got to do it. We replace the outgoing bad stuff with positive, healthy, fair, reasonable, and supportive feelings and ideas, much like affirmations. Now, quick show of hands, right? How many people have ever tried using those facing the mirror positive affirmations in the morning? I'm a good person. I'm capable. I show up on time. I, right? The affirmations. And maybe the first day you lived up to those. Maybe it felt good. Maybe it felt not so good. Maybe you're looking yourself in the eye going, oh, you phony, that's not real. But you can use positive, well-designed affirmations along with aroma at this key moment, step number 3, to fill in that divot. And when you do this, it's going to increase your likelihood of maintaining these gains that you get. As that number comes down and your good feelings, your positive feelings, become the reflex that the trigger initiates. Instead of making you feel like hell all the time, now it triggers these positive feelings. No, I can't go and correct the trigger. I can't go into each one of your lives and physically correct whatever it is that's going on. This is self-help. This is not a cure. This is not therapy. We're not miracle workers. But when you use these techniques to help yourself, it, by the third step, converts your existing triggers from firing off negative emotions and reactions, that survival reflex, again and again. Now, more positive reminders of what you are, what you can do, how you can move forward, how you can pursue your goals. All of these sensible, fair, and reasonable affirmations can begin to take root, and you will not fight them like before because they don't feel phony. They don't smack of artifice. You don't see yourself as a hypocrite because you're moving in harmony with exactly what you put in place of those outgoing bad feelings, those toxic emotions. As you remedy your own toxic mind, you will start to find that life begins to perform at the level of your affirmation. Now, you can try it without using these techniques, and the affirmations will not stick. They haven't. They bounce right out, don't they? Because there's no place for them to go. But when you have created this hole, the divot, now you've got a place for the good stuff to go, and it sticks. So let's recap that. Once you have got clarity on what your trigger is, or the feelings that rise up, those horrible negative feelings that rise up when your unknown subject is triggering you, either one, now you can work on something. You rate it 0 to 11, you reduce it, and then you replace it. And by the way, it's easy to forget because these techniques can feel so very good. It's easy to forget. I forget from time to time. You're going to want to take another potency rating immediately after you finish step 3, replace. But to make it easy, whenever I take my after score, your after rating, I just roll the numbers back. I go, okay, from extreme 11 all the way down to peaceful 0. Where am I now? You'll hear me say that to people with whom I'm familiar, with whom I've worked before. Hey, where are you now? What that means is, hey, just pause for a second, think about what you've worked on, and extreme 11 all the way down to 0. Where are you now? Where are you honestly? And be honest with yourself. I'm not going to be there looking over your shoulders. I'm never going to see your work. You can invest yourself entirely in this process, and you can tell yourself things that you'll never tell another living soul. Things you'd never even tell a therapist or a priest. But you can be honest with yourself, and you can be honest in your numbers. If you're an extreme 11 and it only goes down to a 10, guess what? Without NovaNetix, it would still be an 11 the rest of your life. If it came down to a 9, my goodness, that's 2 numbers. There aren't that many more to go. Take a little time, come back and hit it again. Hit it again. Maybe try another technique or change up, maybe mix and match the techniques. Make it your own. That way you can make it customized to your existing values and beliefs. Because this is done in the state of mind where you're wide awake. I'm not using hypnosis. I'm not using some sort of auto-suggestion. I'm reminding you, if anything else, that you are in control and how good it can feel to trust yourself again using these healthy, safe parameters. With your mind understanding after a few exposures to these techniques, I'm going to feel better and it's safe. He's going to put good stuff in. I don't have to backfill the hole. I'm going to be okay, and I know this is going to help me. No problem. So, 3 things. Rate it, reduce it, replace it. That's the basics. That's your white belt, if you will, of NovaNetix.
Please pause the recording and take a break. Then, continue on to part 3, where you may find out if you're a strong candidate for NovaNetix. Be sure that you are in a safe place, free from distraction, and that you are not operating machinery or otherwise performing tasks that require your attention. As always, be safe and use your best judgment. Welcome to part 3 of our presentation. Over the next few minutes, you will have an opportunity to see if you are among the many who are able to use NovaNetix techniques successfully. As a reminder, the information presented does not constitute mental or medical health care whatsoever. Additionally, NovaNetix is not a substitute for therapy, counseling, or other forms of professional care. NovaNetix is intended only for the well and stable individual. Trigger warning. NovaNetix refers at times to feelings, memories, recollections, and emotions which may be of a triggering nature. If you feel that such may present a problem, you are strongly discouraged from use of NovaNetix self-improvement strategies and techniques. Use of NovaNetix is at your own risk. As always, think for yourself and use your best judgment.
If you would like to try a small sample and see if you are among those able to use NovaNetix successfully, grab something with which to write, a piece of paper, and a safe, familiar fragrance, something you enjoy. Some participants have used scented lotions, mild perfumes, essential oils, or whatnot. Once you have those items together, make certain you are in a safe location, free from distractions, and that you are not operating machinery or performing tasks where otherwise your attention is needed. Be safe.
If you are ready to begin, think for a moment about your present life situation. Write down a past or current challenge or situation that contains some negative feelings. Feel free to pause this recording as you recall an incident or circumstance that you would like to test against the basic NovaNetix sample exercise. Once you have selected something negative to process down, please rate how strongly it bothers you, using a 0 to 11 scale of emotional intensity, where 0 represents peaceful, calm feelings, all the way up to extreme 11, which represents the strongest, most upsetting degree of emotional intensity. Again, pause if you need time to carefully reflect on and accurately rate this emotional intensity. Be sure to write down your rating number for later comparison. Now, once you have written down your emotional intensity rating, you are ready to follow along with Douglas as he guides you through the NovaNetix sample technique, the trash can stomp. After completing the sample technique, be sure to immediately take a new rating using the 0 to 11 scale and write your new rating beside the first one. You'll then compare the two and see whether or not you were able to achieve a lower rating. If the number drops, NovaNetix may be right for you. And now, let's hear from the founder of NovaNetix. Here's Douglas.
Hi, this is Douglas. Welcome to the NovaNetix Basic Sample Technique, the Trash Can Stomp. This technique will allow you to see if you also are able to use NovaNetix techniques. Not everybody can, but this is a great way to find out for yourself right away here at the very beginning whether or not you are one of the people who are able to use NovaNetix techniques. From here, what I'd like you to do is imagine a scale, a number scale in front of you, going from left to right. And it ranges from 0, perfectly peaceful and calm, feels good, all the way up to extreme 11, just the absolute worst. Oh, it's awful. And then 5 or 6 is somewhere in between. I'm going to ask you to think about something either present in your life or from the past that weighs heavily upon you when you think about it. You feel an emotional downshift. It feels kind of bad. Now, I don't want you to dwell on that, but the reason I'll ask you for that in this taste test is so that you can then assign a number based off that 0 to 11 scale that represents subjectively how intensely you still feel that negative feeling. Maybe they're a 1 or a 2. No big deal. Maybe they're an 8, 9, 10, or 11. Oh, the worst. Now be fair to yourself. I'll never know your score unless you share it with me. You don't have to. So be honest with yourself. This is only for you. Write that down. Pick up your safe and familiar chosen aroma. Don't sniff it yet. It's okay if you have. But we're going to get to that. Just for now, what I'd like for you to do, eyes open or closed, it doesn't matter. This isn't hypnosis. You're wide awake, and as you'll notice, you remain in complete control. I'm just going to guide you through some suggestions. In your mind's eye, that place where we used to go as children and play and pretend and use imagination. I'd like for you to picture that you're outside on a hot summer's day in a large field of freshly cut grass. The grass is low. There are no allergies with which to contend. Everything's fine. But in front of you is a large metal trash can, and it's filled to the overflowing levels with just all sorts of horrible roadkill and dead animals and just awful, nasty, vile, rotting, putrid things. Oh, it's horrible. It smells terrible, and it looks absolutely disgusting. The lid is almost falling off. It's so filled to overflowing. Get a good look. Go on, look at it. And now, in your imagination, let's back away from it a little bit. Give yourself some comfortable distance. Now, in your mind's eye, the place of imagination, create a symbol, like a tiny wadded up piece of paper, or maybe a little tiny storm cloud, or a frowny face, whatever you decide. And let that temporarily represent those awful feelings that you're going to be testing NovaNetix against, the ones that you wrote your 0 to 11 score on. I'm going to call that an ABC XYZ. That's just a placeholder variable. I don't know what it is, so we'll call it that. So whatever your ABC XYZ is, create in your mind's eye a symbol that represents that. It could be a frowny face, a tiny storm cloud, wadded up paper, whatever. And now, using your imagination, that gets stuffed deep down into the trash can, where it gets twisted and it's all saturated with all that nasty, disgusting filth. Oh, it's horrible. And you're mixing that symbol for that horrible ABCXYZ, and it's getting back and forth into all those old chicken guts and fish heads and maggots and flies everywhere, and oh, it's awful. And now the lid gets put back on that trash can. And remember, it's a hot summer's day, so oh, it's just horrible. So let's give yourself some breathing room. Come with me. We're going to back away from it. Back away. You just keep on. You're in control, not me, so you decide. How far back away from that nastiness do you want to get from? Come on back. Come on back. And now, when you're ready, please go ahead and imagine suspended by a golden thread right over that trash can, coming down, down, down from the air, is this enormous work boot. Huge, huge boot with a thick sole and a heel that's way out to here. And look at that little trash can now, because you're in the distance, and this gigantic, powerful, mighty boot is coming down, down, down. And you're in control, not me. So after a couple of light, gentle sniffs of your chosen aroma, just catch a few whiffs of it. Here, I'll follow along with you. Get the scented lotion here. And just nice, gentle breathing. Maybe a couple, 2 or 3. It's no big deal. Now, if you would, you're in control, not me. So please, in the next few moments, start that boot stomp, stomp, stomping on that trash can. Use your imagination. Invest in your imagination now. Use rich, vivid imagery and stomp, stomp, stomp. It's okay if you've gone ahead and started. This is for you. Stomp, stomp, stomp. You can even say it or think it aloud in your mind. Stomp, stomp, stomp. Maybe this time use the heel instead of the toe. Stomp, stomp. Really grind it in like you would. Oh, just stomp. And now lift that boot up. Go ahead and grab a couple more quick sniffs of that aroma. Here we go. In the nose. And it's okay to smile a little bit as you do this. That just means you're actually able to see it better. The ones who are able to use it better, they notice the corners of their mouth start to lift a little bit. It just happens. Nice deep breath in with aroma. And it's okay to feel the difference that relief can make as you continue to stomp, 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 stomp. It's okay to laugh a little. Have fun with this, because this is for you. So stomp, stomp, stomp. Maybe you want to use the toes this time. Really grind it in there. Stomp, stomp, stomp. Like in the old days when they used to grind in an old cigarette butt. Stomp, stomp. Nasty, disgusting stuff. Just getting beat up and stomped all around. Now, if you would, Please lift the boot up, and take a look. With me, let's zoom in at that trash can. Does it look the same as it did before you started stomping it? Use your imagination and try to stand it up. It's probably smashed in pretty good. Oh man, I can't imagine the smell. But try to imagine standing it back up and make it look just as pristine as before. It's okay if you struggle to make it do that, because the mind is beginning to accept that change, even at a symbolic level, even in the imaginative state, is possible for that symbol buried deep in all that nasty, disgusting filth. Isn't that neat? Let's lock it in with a little bit of aroma. Nice deep breath in. Maybe tighten up your shoulder muscles. Really get those muscles super strong, super tight. Hold it. And now exhale. And let the muscles go loose, limp, and relaxed. And look around and see all the things around you. Maybe you're indoors. Maybe you're really outdoors. Who knows? But now let's look back to that trash can. Now, you're in control, not me, so you have to decide when to go ahead and start stomping. But I'm telling you what, that trash can, it's not looking too good. So ready? I'm going to go ahead with you. Maybe you are. Let's follow along. Here we go. And stomp. Really grind it in. Stomp. Say it with me. Stomp. Nice big one this time. Stomp. And you can imagine the sound of carnival music. Stomp. Isn't this ridiculous? Now, if you would, go ahead and clear your mind. Just let the trash can and the boot and all that silliness just go back to the imaginative state where it belongs. We're done with it. We can let it go now. But real quick, hey, I'll do it with you. Give me that scented lotion again. All right. Take up your chosen safe and familiar aroma. Nice deep breath this time, and get just a little sniff of it as you do. Just kind of coax that amygdala back awake. And say with me, I can decide when to choose how to feel. Okay, nice deep breath in with aroma, and say it with me. Because I get to feel more in control now. Because I get to feel more in control now. Yes, you do. Let's just do a couple more. Why not? Nice deep breath in. And as you exhale, because I get to decide when. That's right, you do. I get to decide when. And why not go ahead and have another aroma breath, nice and deep. And I don't have to choose to feel better now. And I don't have to choose to feel better now. No, you don't. No, you don't. But you just might later. It doesn't have to happen now. It doesn't have to happen this week. But because you're in control, you'll know when the time feels right, because it just feels good. And I just would like to invite you to take back that control in all areas of your life, not just this, but maybe in places where you have forgotten just for a little while how good it can feel to be back in control of your life, to be back in control of the ability to make safe and careful decisions. And see, you are safe. You can be trusted to make decisions again. You can be trusted to take control, and I like it. Why not go ahead and say that with me with some aroma? Let's lock that in. Nice deep breath. I can feel safe making reasonable decisions. Yes. I can feel safe making reasonable decisions. That's absolutely right. Practical decisions. Well-reasoned decisions. And why not? Why not? Why not? Because you can trust yourself more and more, and there'll never be another now. So now, very quickly, if you would, look around the room, or if you're outside, look around outside. And just to make absolutely sure you're completely wide awake and in complete control all the way through, look around and identify 3 or 4 objects. You might say, oh, that's a tree. Or if you're inside, oh, well, this is a desk. That's a computer monitor. This is my phone. That's a wall. There's a window over there. Okay, great. And now, hey, real quick, let's don't forget about it. Let's grab your pen and paper and go back here. I'll do it with you. And let's return back to where you had written that number down from 0 to 11. Now go ahead and sit with whatever it is that you just processed on, whatever you stuffed into that nasty old trash can. Remember that? And now from extreme 11, awful, horrible, oh, I can't take it anymore, all the way down to 0. Oh, feeling better, feeling so much relief, feeling calm, feeling more in control. And somewhere in the middle, 3, 4, or 5. Sit with those feelings now, and when you can clearly identify what number best expresses how you feel about what we processed, go ahead and write that beside your first feeling. And now let's interpret the results. With associative symbolic redefinition, the goal is to begin by rating how strongly something affects you. Then we want to reduce the number down. Even if that number falls by 1 or 2, that's a sign of progress. Lastly, we want to replace those bad feelings with strong affirmative feelings, like I did when I gently reminded you that you can feel safe to feel more in control, making reasonable choices for yourself. The 3 R's we talked about in the lecture. So now from extreme 11 all the way down to 0, get in touch with your feelings about that problem now. Write that down and go ahead and compare the two, right? Here's what probably happened for you. Probably your number went down by 1, maybe 2. If so, great. You can use NovaNetix strategies. It just might take you a few more uses to get to the same results that somebody who that number goes down by 3, 4, or 5, oh boy, they can do it right away. And I know because there have been issues I've worked on where the number simply wouldn't budge but 1 or 2 every time I tried it. No trouble. But if your number moved down by even 1, there it is. Your handwriting right in front of you. You can learn to use basic NovaNetix reduction strategies.
Thank you for your time and interest in this remarkable discovery in personal development. NovaNetix isn't for everybody, but now that you know NovaNetix may be right for you, please reach out to us for coaching, training, or self-paced study courses. Self-help can perform better than before when you get in sync with how the mind wants to approach useful change. Please reach out to us on social media, such as Facebook, Instagram, or follow us on YouTube. Links are at our website. That's NovaNetix.org. Thank you for your time today. Be blessed and well.